For over 3,000 years, the sands of the Valley of the Kings guarded a remarkable secret. Beneath the surface lay the tomb of a boy king whose life was brief and fragile, but whose journey to the afterlife was prepared with extraordinary care. When his final resting place was finally revealed to the world, it was more than just a treasure trove of gold and jewels. It was a meticulously crafted sanctuary, a masterpiece of art, ritual, and spiritual protection. Every single object, from the protective amulets and magnificent chariots to the iconic golden mask, tells a powerful story. It's a story about vulnerability, mortality, and the incredible ingenuity of a civilization determined to conquer death itself. As the doors opened, wonder met a quiet sense of uneasy amazement at the tomb's breathtaking beauty. For over 3,000 years, the desert held its breath. Beneath the sun-scorched sands of the Valley of the Kings, a story lay sleeping, sealed away from the world. It was the story of a boy king, Tutankhamun, and his final resting place, a kingdom in miniature, untouched and unbroken. When Howard Carter finally broke that silence in 1922, the world was blinded by gold. The treasures that poured out of the tomb were dazzling, a spectacle of unimaginable wealth. But beyond the glitter, a quieter, more unsettling truth was waiting. The gold and jewels were a mask, concealing a profound fragility. The painted walls and carved shrines whispered secrets of vulnerability, fear, and devotion. This wasn't just a monument to power. It was a space where wonder and unease coexisted, where breathtaking beauty was a shield against the inevitability of death. Tutankhamun was a boy, crowned at a tender age, his body frail, his reign short. His life was shaped by forces beyond his control, a fact etched into his very bones. Yet in death, he was surrounded by the most meticulous care imaginable. Hundreds of walking sticks, miniature chariots, protective amulets, and layers of intricate shrouds weren't just treasures. They were instruments of survival, designed to address every weakness, every fear, and every uncertainty his short life had known. The tomb was a record of a culture grappling with fragility, a civilization attempting to preserve what nature and time threatened to erase. When Carter first peered into the antechamber, uttering the famous words, "I see wonderful things," he saw more than gold. He saw a testament to human concern colliding with mortality. The world was captivated by the riches, but what many missed was the underlying story, a boy who walked with difficulty, who suffered from hidden ailments, and whose life required extraordinary care, both in this world and the next. This tomb was less a monument to a king's power, and more a testament to a people's careful devotion in the face of loss. Every single object in this tomb tells a piece of that story. The iconic golden mask, with its serene and perfect face, was more than a masterpiece of artistry. It was a shield, a symbol of divine completeness, placed upon a fragile human form. The stacks of walking sticks, some showing signs of repair, reveal a body that struggled to move. Toys and personal items hint at a childhood cut short by the immense weight of responsibility and illness. Even the jars of food and anointing oils speak to a society that knew survival in the afterlife demanded preparation. That vulnerability was not something to be ignored, but something to be cared for. The very layout of the tomb tells a story of urgency. Unlike the grand sprawling monuments of more powerful pharaohs, Tutankhamun's tomb is small, almost apologetic. It was hastily modified to accommodate a sudden, unexpected death. The corridors are tight, the chambers crowded, the objects layered in a practical, almost frantic order. But this wasn't chaos. Every choice reflects a civilization responding to crisis with intelligence and profound ritual devotion. Each layer of nesting coffins, each nested shrine, each precisely placed amulet was intentional, a calculated move to compensate for weakness and ensure protection for eternity. But for all its meticulous care, there is an undeniable sense of unease. The tomb is not a serene final resting place. The crowded space, the hurried construction, the sheer density of objects, it all hints at anxiety, grief, and a deep-seated fear of what lies beyond. The tomb preserves a life, but it also preserves a civilization's profound acknowledgement of its own limitations in the face of death. It captures the tension between our wonder at human ingenuity and our unease at the fragility it was designed to protect. That tension resonates powerfully with us today. We marvel at the artistry and foresight of the ancient Egyptians, yet we are unsettled by the clear evidence of vulnerability and loss. Modern science has peeled back even more layers of this story. advanced scans and DNA analysis have revealed Tutankhamun's fragility in unprecedented detail. Congenital bone deformities, evidence of multiple bouts of malaria, and a complex family history. With this new knowledge, the objects themselves transform. The walking sticks are no longer just curiosities. They are understood as essential medical aids. The protective amulets and shrines become evidence of a deliberate, almost medicinal response to a fragile life. The tomb has evolved in our eyes, from a simple treasure trove into a powerful testament to empathy, ritual, and human ingenuity in the face of our shared mortality. Yet, our own curiosity has come with consequences. The opening of the tomb, once hailed as a pure triumph of discovery, exposed these delicate artifacts to air, light, and human interference. The silence that had preserved the boy king for 3 millennia was broken, and with it, a delicate balance was disturbed. Early archaeological practices, though well-intentioned, caused damage and altered the tomb's original context. In a way, our modern intrusion mirrors the very tension found within the tomb itself: wonder and unease, fascination and risk, beauty intertwined with its own fragility. This is the true essence of Tutankhamun's tomb. It's a duality that draws us in, a story that invites admiration while demanding deep reflection. It compels us to marvel at the devotion of a civilization long gone, while reminding us that beneath all the gold and artistry lies a universal story of mortality, vulnerability, and care. Every artifact, every careful placement, every painstakingly preserved object speaks to both awe and anxiety. It tells a story that is as much about the living who prepared the tomb as it is about the king who lay within it. As we journey into the world of Tutankhamun, we are not just observers of ancient history. We are witnesses to a civilization's intimate confrontation with impermanence. We are looking at a record of human vulnerability, a mirror reflecting our own anxieties about mortality. This is a place where wonder and unease meet, where beauty conceals fragility, where devotion confronts fear, and where time itself has paused to preserve the delicate balance between life, death, and memory. The story of Tutankhamun is not just a tale of a boy king or a hoard of treasure. It is the story of how a culture treated one of its most vulnerable members with extraordinary care. It's the story of how a hurried burial became a timeless record of devotion, and how a silence, once broken, challenges us to see not just the gold, but the profound humanity behind it. It is a story of fragility preserved, of awe tempered by reflection, and of a life that survived millennia to teach us about mortality, devotion, and the quiet, powerful tension between wonder and unease. We often see Tutankhamun's treasures as symbols of immense wealth and power. But what if they tell a different story? A story not of a mighty pharaoh, but of a fragile boy king and the incredible efforts made to protect him. Tutankhamun's life was short and challenging. Modern scans of his mummy reveal he was born with genetic vulnerabilities. He had a club foot and a curved spine, making even simple movements a struggle. For a king expected to lead armies and perform grand ceremonies, this was a constant burden. Yet, the world he ruled demanded a performance of strength, no matter his private pain. This is where his tomb reveals its deepest secrets. It's not just a collection of beautiful objects. It's a meticulously crafted support system, designed to compensate for his weaknesses in the afterlife, just as his advisors had in life. Take the walking sticks. Over 130 were found in his tomb. These weren't just decorative. Many show clear signs of use and repair. They were essential tools for a young man who couldn't walk without support. Carved with gods and protective symbols, they were his companions, offering both physical and divine guardianship on his journey. And the chariots, 6 of them were dismantled and packed into the small tomb. They weren't trophies of war. For a king who struggled to walk, these chariots represented freedom. They were a promise of mobility, a way to traverse the afterlife without the limitations of his own body. They were a bridge between his physical vulnerability and the eternal possibility of movement. Even the famous amulets and the heart scarab placed on his mummy tell this story of intimate care. They weren't just random spiritual tokens. Each was strategically placed to protect a vital organ, to stabilize the body, and to ensure his safe passage through judgment. It was a sophisticated, ritualized form of medicine, addressing every potential weakness. This tomb wasn't built for a grand display. It was built for preservation. The food and wine packed inside weren't for a party. They were essential provisions. The ancient Egyptians believed the soul needed sustenance to survive its journey, and the sheer abundance of offerings shows the immense foresight and concern for this young king who had known illness his whole life. They were giving him the tools to endure once more. Even the hurried, seemingly chaotic nature of the tomb's construction speaks volumes. It's much smaller than those of other pharaohs, but every nested shrine, every coffin within a coffin, was another layer of protection, a buffer against decay and danger. The tomb itself is a physical shield, a fortress built around fragility. And finally, the golden mask. Its serene, perfect face has captivated the world. But it was more than just a portrait. It was a shield, an eternal face of wholeness to place over a body that had been compromised in life. It was the final, breathtaking act of care to present Tutankhamun to the gods as complete and perfect, no matter the reality. When you look at the treasures this way, you see a more profound story. It's not about power through conquest, but about achieving immortality through care. The tomb of Tutankhamun is a testament to a civilization that recognized vulnerability and responded with meticulous devotion. It shows us that true greatness can come from quiet protection, and that attention to weakness can preserve a life long after it has ended. In November 1922, beneath the sands of Egypt's Valley of the Kings, history held its breath. For 3,000 years, the tomb of Tutankhamun lay sealed, a time capsule preserved by silence and dust. When the archaeologist Howard Carter finally broke that seal, he didn't just find treasure, he found a world paused in time. Imagine Carter peering through a small opening into the darkness. His candle flickered, and for the first time in millennia, light danced across golden surfaces. He famously said he saw wonderful things, but what he truly encountered was a paradox. The air itself felt ancient, thick with dust motes that had been suspended for 30 centuries. As he and his team stepped inside, they were not just entering a tomb. They were intruding on a sacred, silent space, a world never meant for their eyes. The silence was broken, and the modern world rushed in. The first room, the antechamber, wasn't a neat museum display. It was a jumble of extraordinary objects: gilded chariots, ornate couches shaped like mythical beasts, jewel-encrusted chests, and walking sticks were piled high. To a modern eye, it looked like chaos, but it wasn't. It was a carefully arranged spiritual fortress, designed to protect the boy king in his journey through the afterlife. Every item had a purpose, a ritual meaning. Gold was everywhere, shimmering with an almost supernatural glow. But beneath the dazzling wealth, there was a sense of profound anxiety. This wasn't a monument to a mighty conqueror. It was an elaborate, desperate attempt to protect a young, fragile life. News of the discovery exploded across the globe. The world became obsessed with the boy king. Newspapers ran sensational headlines, and stories of a deadly pharaoh's curse began to spread like wildfire. People were captivated by the spectacle of death and riches, silence and intrusion. But the objects themselves told a much quieter, more human story. They spoke of a culture grappling with mortality, of a civilization pouring all its resources into safeguarding a vulnerable ruler. The sheer volume of gold and treasures seemed to scream a message of fear of being forgotten, fear of weakness. Howard Carter's work was meticulous. He understood the immense responsibility he held. Every single artifact, and there were over 5,000 of them, was photographed, catalogued, and carefully recorded before being moved. But even this careful process came at a cost. The introduction of light, air, and human touch began to chip away at the tomb's perfect preservation. The fragile pigments on painted chests started to fade. Ancient textiles grew brittle. The very act of discovery, of satisfying our curiosity, was an act of destruction. Here, the wonder of what Carter found was locked in a battle with the unease of what was being lost. The desire to know was threatening the very thing that had kept Tutankhamun's world intact. As the team worked their way deeper into the tomb, the treasures revealed more about the boy king's life. The iconic golden mask, with its serene expression, was designed for protection and eternal peace. But other items told a different story. Over 100 walking sticks were found, many showing clear signs of use, suggesting Tutankhamun had a physical disability and struggled to walk. There were toys and games from his childhood, a poignant reminder of a life cut short. Even the food and wine left for him were chosen with care, as if to compensate for a lifetime of weakness. The tomb wasn't a boast of power. It was a cocoon of care, a testament to a society's desperate attempt to provide in death what life could not. While the world clamored for stories of curses and golden thrones, the real narrative was far more subtle. The public saw the glitter and the spectacle, but they often missed the vulnerability at its heart. Tutankhamun's tomb wasn't a story about a king's greatness. It was a story about human fragility and the incredible lengths people will go to protect those they care for. Carter himself felt this tension. He marveled at the exquisite craftsmanship but also felt the heavy burden of his intrusion. He was revealing one of the greatest finds in history, but he was also dismantling a sacred space, piece by piece. The wonder of the discovery was inseparable from the unease of its consequences. The contrast was everywhere. The dazzling gold reflected hope and divinity, while the deep shadows hinted at death and decay. The incredible artistry celebrated an eternal afterlife, but the wear on a walking stick spoke of daily, human struggle. Tutankhamun himself remained unseen for years, buried within a series of nested coffins, yet his presence was felt in every object. His vulnerability had shaped every ritual, every choice, both in his life and in his death. But the modern world, then and now, is often more drawn to the spectacle than to the quiet empathy the tomb invites. This discovery forces us to ask some difficult questions. How should we interact with the past? Is the pursuit of knowledge worth disturbing the dead? The tomb was created to be a final, eternal resting place, to protect and preserve. Our act of opening it, of studying it, was a violation of that purpose. No matter how well intentioned, each artifact brought into the light was a revelation, but it also represented a disruption, a breaking of a sacred trust. The wonder of what we learned is forever tied to the unease of how we learned it. Today, Tutankhamun's treasures dazzle millions in museums around the world, but they carry a dual message. They are a triumph of ancient art and a record of royal devotion, but they are also a cautionary tale about our own relationship with history. The boy king became immortal not through his military conquests or his political power, but through the extraordinary care taken to protect his fragile existence. His legacy is a delicate balance of awe and anxiety, wonder and unease. And as we gaze upon his golden mask, we are reminded that history is never simple. Discovery is both a blessing and a burden, and the most profound stories are often the ones whispered in silence, not shouted in headlines. When we think of Tutankhamun's tomb, we imagine glittering gold and unimaginable opulence. But what if the real treasure isn't the wealth, but the story of profound human care hidden within it? The tomb is more than a monument to a king. It's a carefully constructed system designed to protect a vulnerable boy for eternity. Let's start with the most iconic piece, the golden mask. Its serene, perfect face isn't just a work of art, it's a shield. Modern science tells us Tutankhamun's body showed signs of illness and injury. The mask corrects this, projecting an idealized, invulnerable image for the afterlife. It was the ultimate act of care, imposing order and perfection on a fragile reality. But the story gets even more intimate. Tucked within the mummy's wrappings were hundreds of amulets and charms. Each one had a specific job: to protect the heart, to guard the limbs, to ward off evil spirits. For a boy with a frail body, these weren't just superstitions. They were a calculated response to his weakness, a meticulously planned support system for his journey into the unknown. Then there are the walking sticks, over 100 of them found in the tomb. Some are clearly worn, evidence of his mobility issues in life. Others are ceremonial, beautifully carved with divine symbols. This combination shows a civilization that didn't hide from weakness. Instead, they acknowledged it and provided solutions, both practical and spiritual, promising continued support even in death. This philosophy extends to the chariots, which were disassembled to fit into the cramped tomb. They weren't just status symbols. They represented the freedom and mobility that Tutankhamun may have lacked in life. The furniture, too, like the ornate chairs and beds, were designed for comfort and support, a silent acknowledgement of a body that had endured physical strain. Even the food and wine, sealed in jars for millennia, tell a story of preparation. This wasn't about indulgence. It was about sustenance, ensuring the king would have everything he needed. It shows a deep understanding of survival, a recognition that care means providing for every possible need. The tomb itself, with its narrow corridors and nested coffins, is a fortress. Each layer adds more protection. Each spell painted on the walls reinforces his safety. The crowded, almost claustrophobic arrangement of treasures isn't a flaw. It's a physical manifestation of anxiety and meticulous planning. It creates a tension between the dazzling beauty of the gold and the unsettling reality of mortality. When you look at the tomb this way, you see a powerful dialogue between wonder and unease. The wonder of human creativity and artistry is right there, beside the unavoidable unease of human fragility. The toys of a boy king, the ceremonial robes, the spiritual guides painted on the walls, they all point to a life cut short, a body that needed protection. Ultimately, Tutankhamun's tomb teaches us a profound lesson. It shows a society that responded to vulnerability not with shame, but with incredible ingenuity, ritual, and care. The treasures are breathtaking, but their true significance lies in the story they tell, that even in the face of our greatest weaknesses, human compassion and foresight can create a legacy that lasts forever. For over a century, the tomb of Tutankhamun has dazzled the world with its golden treasures and whispered tales of ancient curses, but beneath the layers of gold and myth lies a far more human story, one that modern science is only now beginning to tell. This isn't just a story of a boy king's riches, it's a profound narrative of fragility, care, and the incredible lengths an ancient civilization went to protect one of its most vulnerable members. When Howard Carter first peered into the darkness of the tomb in 1922, he saw wonderful things: gold, jewels, and statues that spoke of immense power and wealth. But today, with tools Carter could only dream of, we see something else. We see evidence of a young man who struggled to walk, a pharaoh who leaned on a cane. Tutankhamun's story is one where overwhelming splendor meets profound unease. Forensic analysis and CT scans of his mummy have painted a startling picture. Tutankhamun's spine was curved by scoliosis. His left foot was clubbed and misshapen, with parts of the bone dying from a lack of blood flow. This condition, known as Kliller's disease, would have made every step painful. He almost certainly walked with a pronounced, unsteady limp. Imagine being a pharaoh, a living god in the eyes of your people, yet needing a stick just to cross a room. The pressure to appear strong and divine must have been immense, a constant battle against the limitations of his own body, and the ancient Egyptians knew it. This is where the story shifts from a simple medical diagnosis to a testament of incredible insight and compassion. Inside his tomb, archaeologists found over 130 walking sticks. These weren't just ceremonial symbols of power. Many of them show clear signs of wear and tear, their handles smoothed by use, some even repaired. They were his daily companions, his essential supports. The Egyptians didn't hide his weakness. They acknowledged it and made sure he would have the support he needed, not just in this life, but in the next. These canes, placed carefully beside his sarcophagus, are some of the most moving objects in the entire tomb, a direct admission of his fragility. But they didn't stop there. The tomb also contained miniature chariots and symbolic vehicles. These weren't toys, they were promises of mobility beyond the confines of his physical form. It's a powerful intersection of awe and discomfort. We marvel at the craftsmanship and the foresight, but we're also faced with the stark reality of why these items were necessary. They were compensating for a body that was failing him. Modern genetic analysis has added another layer to this complex story. DNA extracted from the royal mummies revealed that Tutankhamun's parents were brother and sister. This inbreeding, common among Egyptian royalty to preserve the divine bloodline, came at a terrible genetic cost. It likely amplified the congenital bone disorders that plagued him throughout his short life. And as if that weren't enough, scientists also found traces of the malaria parasite in his system, the oldest known genetic proof of the disease. A weakened immune system, a debilitating bone condition, and a severe case of malaria. It's a tragic combination that likely led to his death at just 19 years old. The treasures, the spells, the intricate amulets tucked within his wrappings, they weren't just for show. They were ancient medical interventions. A culture grappling with mortality, using every tool at its disposal, both practical and spiritual, to fight back. The embalming process itself was extraordinarily meticulous. Embalmers used resins and oils to stabilize his fragile tissues and layered his linen wraps to support his posture. Even in death, it was a final act of care for a body they knew was weak. The tomb wasn't just a vault of treasure, it was a laboratory of preservation, a monument to human ingenuity in the face of fragility. When Carter made his discovery, the world was captivated by the curse of the pharaohs, a sensationalist myth that overshadowed the true story. The real story isn't about supernatural revenge. It's about a civilization meticulously addressing vulnerability. It's about a boy whose life was fragile in every sense of the word. The golden mask is breathtaking, but the worn handle of a walking stick tells a deeper, more human story. Even the tomb's environment played a crucial role. For 3,000 years, the dry desert air and stable temperature created a perfect microclimate, preserving everything in near-perfect condition. But the moment the seal was broken, that delicate balance was disturbed. Modern conservationists now face the challenge of protecting these fragile artifacts from humidity, dust, and decay. Once again, we find ourselves caught between wonder and unease, the wonder of what the past preserved, and the unease of knowing our very presence can threaten it. Ultimately, Tutankhamun's tomb is a dialogue across millennia. It's a conversation between the boy king who lived a life of pain, the society that cared for him with such dedication, and us, the modern observers piecing together his story. We can now see past the dazzling gold and appreciate the profound humanity at the heart of it all. His fragility is no longer a hidden secret. It's a part of his legacy that deserves to be honored. The story of King Tut teaches us something fundamental about power, wealth, and what it means to be human. It reminds us that even the most glorious achievements are interwoven with our shared vulnerability. His short, difficult life, once defined by legend, is now one of history's most powerful studies of fragility, preserved through art, ritual, and incredible care. When we look at Tutankhamun today, we see more than a king. We see a young man, and in the space between the splendor and the suffering, we find a story that continues to resonate, whispering its truths across the ages. When Howard Carter broke the seal on Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922, it was more than just an archaeological discovery. It was a moment that changed our relationship with the past forever. For over 3,000 years, the boy king's tomb lay hidden and undisturbed, a silent testament to the incredible care of an ancient civilization. The desert was its guardian, perfectly preserving not just a young pharaoh, but the meticulous rituals meant to protect him for eternity. When Carter's team stepped inside, they entered a world no one was ever meant to see. With that first breath of modern air, the wonder of discovery collided with a deep sense of unease. Carter was a careful archaeologist, but even he couldn't stop the inevitable. Dust that hadn't moved in millennia was stirred. Colors that had resisted fading were suddenly exposed to light and air. Organic materials like wood and fabric, stable in the dry desert, began to face new threats from humidity and human touch. The very act of revealing these treasures to the world made them vulnerable. This raised profound ethical questions. Was it right to disturb a sacred resting place? Tutankhamun's tomb wasn't built to be a museum. It was a sanctuary, designed to honor a young life and guide his spirit. Every object was placed with purpose. Every layer of wrapping was a calculated act of protection. Our modern curiosity imposed itself on this ancient intention. Some argue that the pursuit of knowledge justifies the intrusion. Others believe that respect for the dead should have come first. It's a debate that still echoes today. The world became captivated by the gold, the jewels, and the sensational stories of a pharaoh's curse. But this media frenzy often missed the deeper story. The boy king was turned into a spectacle, and the incredible care his people took to protect his fragile body was overshadowed by headlines. The tomb's original purpose to safeguard and honor was lost in the excitement. Even the efforts to conserve the artifacts were complex. Early techniques sometimes caused more harm than good. The iconic gold mask, once cleaned, now requires constant care to prevent decay. We had to intervene to save what our intervention had endangered. Perhaps the most poignant part of this story is the treatment of Tutankhamun's body. We can get lost in the awe of the treasures, but at the center of it all is a human being, a boy who lived, suffered, and died young. Modern science has revealed so much about him, from his physical ailments to his likely cause of death. We understand his vulnerability now more than ever, but this knowledge came at the cost of exposing him in ways his people never intended. Our responsibility extends beyond the golden artifacts. It extends to the person they were meant to protect. The discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb became a global phenomenon, fueling museum exhibitions, books, and films that have been seen by millions. We marvel at the craftsmanship, but it's crucial to remember the story beneath the surface. This isn't just a tale of treasure. It's a meditation on care, mortality, and our responsibility to the past. The tomb teaches us that curiosity always has consequences. Every time we look at these artifacts, we are reminded that wonder and responsibility must go hand in hand. Ultimately, the legacy of Tutankhamun is more than just gold and fame. It's a profound lesson in how we engage with history. It teaches us that respect requires more than just looking. It requires understanding, foresight, and a deep sense of ethical duty. The boy king's story insists that beauty alone is not enough. It must be paired with vigilance, empathy, and careful stewardship. As we continue to study and learn from his tomb, we inherit not just his treasures, but the profound responsibility to care for them. and for his memory. For the ancient Egyptians, death wasn't the end. It was a transition, a journey into another world that mirrored our own but demanded careful preparation. Tutankhamun's tomb is the ultimate guide for that journey, a map meticulously designed to protect a young king whose life had been fragile. Every object, every painted wall, was both an instruction and a safeguard, ensuring he could navigate the afterlife successfully. In this way, the tomb is a marvel of human ingenuity, but also a profound lesson in care. The burial chambers were arranged with incredible purpose. The antechamber, packed with treasures, was the first stage. Think of it as a staging area, filled with essentials for survival. Furniture, chariots, and personal items weren't just symbols of status. They were practical tools for a life beyond death. Their placement suggests a deep understanding of the king's physical weaknesses and an anticipation of the challenges he would face. It's like a carefully choreographed dance of protection, addressing both his physical and spiritual needs. Beyond this, the burial chamber housed the sarcophagus and its nested coffins, each layer more elaborate than the last. The outer coffins were shields against decay and intruders. The innermost coffin, made of solid gold, was the final, ultimate safeguard for the boy king. Within these layers, amulets were strategically placed over vital organs, each one inscribed with protective spells. The Egyptians believed this precise placement could compensate for the weaknesses he had in life, guarding his soul on its journey to eternity. It's a dazzling display of wealth, but also a sobering reminder of human fragility. The hieroglyphs and wall paintings add another layer to this protective strategy. They show Tutankhamun surrounded by gods, traveling through realms of light and darkness, and overcoming challenges. These aren't just art, they're a visual instruction manual, a blueprint for survival. For a boy who had struggled in life, these images were a powerful tool, combining spiritual guidance with practical instructions. The nested golden shrines are perhaps the clearest example of this dual purpose. Each shrine shields the one inside it, creating a series of barriers against both physical decay and metaphysical threats. The materials gold-carved wood, precious stone were chosen not just for their beauty, but for their spiritual power and durability. This layering reveals a society acutely aware of vulnerability and determined to overcome it, even in death. Of course, a journey requires sustenance. Jars of wine, oils, and dried meats were stored to nourish the king's soul. This wasn't just indulgence, it was a necessity, carefully calculated for someone whose life had been limited by illness. It shows that survival was the central theme, that wonder couldn't exist without practical considerations. Even in eternity, vulnerability required thoughtful intervention. Even the smallest items tell a powerful story. Toys, jewelry, and miniature objects speak to the boy king's humanity, his youth, and the immense care his people had for him. These weren't just decorations, they were companions for the journey, comfort objects to help him maintain his identity. This makes the tomb feel intensely personal, a reflection not just of grand ritual, but of deep devotion and empathy. Ultimately, the Egyptians didn't despair in the face of death. Instead, they used knowledge, ritual, and artistry to address it. Tutankhamun's tomb is the masterpiece of this philosophy, a place where meticulous preparation and human empathy converge to preserve life beyond its natural end. The incredible artistry inspires wonder, but the reason for the protection of a fragile young life brings a sense of unease. In this tension lies the enduring power of his tomb. It's not just a repository of gold. It's a sanctuary of care, a record of the lengths a civilization would go to preserve life and dignity, a story of mortality and love that continues to speak to us across the millennia. Thanks for watching. When Howard Carter peered into Tutankhamun's tomb for the first time, he saw wonderful things, and that's what the world saw too. Newspapers and magazines went wild, transforming a long-dead boy king into a global superstar. Headlines screamed of gold, glittering treasures, and a terrifying curse. People were mesmerized by images of things they could barely imagine: golden thrones, ornate chariots, delicate jewelry, and even the king's own childhood toys. It was a story of unbelievable wealth and splendor, a window into a lost world. But beneath all that dazzling fascination, something else was stirring, a subtle undercurrent of unease. Whispers of misfortune, stories of premature deaths, and a growing legend of supernatural revenge. The world was captivated, but it was also a little spooked. This tension, between awe and anxiety, began the moment the tomb was opened. Howard Carter himself was meticulous. His detailed notes and photographs show an incredible respect for the find, a deep awareness of the care that went into preserving this young king for eternity. But the public, they were hungry for a different kind of story. When the tomb's financier Lord Carnarvon died, just a few months after the discovery, journalists pounced. It wasn't a tragic coincidence, it was the curse of the pharaohs. Fear and fascination became inseparable, weaving a myth around Tutankhamun that was far more sensational than the reality of his life. The truth of a fragile young ruler, carefully laid to rest, was overshadowed by a blockbuster tale of supernatural horror. This media storm amplified both sides of the story. On one hand, you had breathtaking images of gleaming gold and priceless jewels, reinforcing the sheer wonder of it all. On the other, these tales of a deadly curse reminded everyone of something much more fundamental: our own fragility. The contrast was powerful. Immense wealth, next to the stark reality of death, timeless beauty against the certainty of decay. It's a combination that captured the world's imagination, and honestly, it still does. Even today, exhibitions of Tutankhamun's treasures draw millions of people. Why? Because the story taps into something deep within us. The legend of the curse, even though we know it was sensationalized, speaks to our complex relationship with mortality, power, and the great unknown. In his short life, Tutankhamun was physically frail, his survival uncertain. In death, he was meant to be protected forever. But by exposing him to the modern world, we introduced new risks, new vulnerabilities. The myth of the curse is really a symbol of this tension. It's a powerful reminder that discovery can have consequences, and that even the most carefully guarded sanctuaries can be disturbed. This global reaction also tells us a lot about human psychology. We are drawn to gold, not just because it's valuable, but because it represents permanence and stability in a world where nothing lasts. It's a defense against the unsettling reality of our own mortality. The incredible craftsmanship of every single artifact, from the iconic golden mask to the tiniest inlaid trinkets, creates a sense of wonder that can temporarily mask that unease about human fragility. But if you look closely, the story of a vulnerable boy is everywhere. It's in the walking sticks he needed to support himself. It's in the amulets designed to protect him. It's in the very existence of this elaborate tomb, built to preserve a life that was cut short. The splendor is undeniable, but the fragility is woven right into it. Howard Carter himself was caught in this strange duality. His life's work was driven by scientific curiosity, but also by a profound reverence for the boy king. Every note he took, every photograph he made, reflects his understanding that this tomb was designed for two purposes: to convey immense power and wealth, but also to protect a fragile human being. Yet, despite his best efforts, he couldn't completely shield the tomb from the consequences of its discovery. The simple act of opening it exposed everything to light, air, and dust, beginning a slow, subtle process of decay. The very treasures that had been perfectly preserved for over 3,000 years were now vulnerable. The awe of discovery came with the heavy weight of responsibility. The treasures themselves became a mirror, reflecting our own modern anxieties about life, death, and what we leave behind. When we look at that flawless golden mask, we see perfection literally imposed upon fragility. The amulets aren't just jewelry, they're symbols of a desperate need for protection. The chariots and walking sticks aren't just royal accessories, they're acknowledgments of physical limitations. The public marveled at the splendor, but the quiet story of a frail boy, entombed beneath layers of gold and ritual, has always been there, echoing through every museum exhibit and documentary. The tomb isn't just a treasure chest, it's a meditation on human ingenuity and human vulnerability. Beyond the myths, the story of the real Tutankhamun challenges our ideas about childhood, power, and death. He became king at an age when most of us are just starting to figure out the world. Yet his life was filled with politics, rituals, and ceremonies that his young, frail body was not well suited for. The tomb, in a way, is a testament to that struggle and attempt to preserve in death what life could not sustain. When we look at these artifacts today, we're invited to do more than just admire them. We're re-invited to confront both the incredible skill of the artisans who made them and the unsettling reality of the boy king's humanity. You can't separate the two. The beauty is inseparable from the vulnerability, and the wonder is inseparable from a sense of caution. The way we tell this story has also evolved. Early on, it was all about the curse, the gold, the spectacle. But over the decades, scholarship has shifted the focus. Now, we talk more about the historical context, the the burial rituals, and the incredible human care that went into the tomb, we see a deeper narrative of empathy, preparation, and protection. Yet, the public's fascination still thrives on that original tension between awe and anxiety. Museum exhibits masterfully play on this. They invite you to be dazzled by the gold, while subtly reminding you of mortality and human limitation. Ultimately, the enduring lesson from Tutankhamun's tomb is that wonder and unease are two sides of the same golden coin. The boy king's fragility, once hidden beneath layers of gold and ancient ritual, resonates with all of us because we understand mortality. We understand the desire to protect what is precious. The tomb, its treasures, and all the myths surrounding them remind us that beauty can't erase vulnerability, and that with great fascination comes great responsibility. The ancient Egyptians understood this tension perfectly, balancing artistry, ritual, and protection. And now, centuries later, we are still navigating it. Our global fascination with King Tut is a testament to our own curiosity, but it's also a reflection of our deep awareness of how fragile we all are. The gold is stunning, the artistry is breathtaking, but underneath it all lies a carefully preserved story of vulnerability and the profound human need to care for one another. Wonder and unease don't just exist in the tomb. They exist in every single person who looks upon it. The boy king's story endures because it reminds us that beauty and fragility are forever intertwined. When Howard Carter peered into Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922, the world held its breath. The discovery was a moment of pure wonder, a glimpse into a world sealed for over 3,000 years. But that was only the beginning. As the world marveled at the golden treasures, a new, silent challenge emerged. How do we save them? The tomb, perfectly preserved beneath the desert sands of the Valley of the Kings, had never felt the touch of modern air, light, or humidity. Suddenly, every single artifact, from the golden death mask to the most fragile linen shroud, was at risk. The very attention they had waited millennia for was now their greatest threat. A deep sense of unease settled in alongside the awe. The conservationists grappled with a heavy question. How do you share a miracle without destroying it? Early preservation efforts were a mix of careful procedure and pure experimentation. Carter and his team were meticulous, but they were working in the 1920s. They lacked the technology we have today. Dust, moisture, and even the air itself began to attack the ancient pigments on the walls. Wooden chests and chariots, once stable in the dry tomb, started to crack and warp in the new environment. Even the gold, while seemingly eternal, began to show tiny imperfections under the glare of electric lights. The delicate natural balance of the tomb had been shattered by human presence, and there was no going back. Preservation became a delicate dance between curiosity and caution, between study and restraint. Then, modern technology changed the game. Climate-controlled cases, high-resolution 3D scanning, and precise digital documentation allowed experts to study these priceless objects without ever touching them. They could monitor the condition of fragile papyrus scrolls in real time, tracking any decay down to the millimeter. But even with these incredible advances, that original unease never fully went away. The act of opening the tomb, of moving its treasures from their sacred resting place, was irreversible. The boy king's sanctuary, once protected by the silence of the desert, was now a space shared with all of humanity. Museums around the world became the new guardians of these treasures, tasked with both educating the public and ensuring their survival. Grand exhibitions brought the Valley of the Kings to London, Paris, and New York, allowing millions to witness the boy king's life through the things he left behind. The golden thrones, the swift chariots, the intricate jewelry, they all inspired a profound sense of wonder. But alongside that wonder was a quiet reminder of mortality, of how fragile everything truly is, and how much care is required to keep the past alive. In every display case, you could feel that tension, admiration for the artistry, and anxiety about the risks of exposure. This brings up a huge ethical debate that continues to this day. Should these treasures remain in Egypt, their original home, where they belong culturally, but might face risks from political or economic instability? Or should they travel to museums abroad, where they might be safer but are removed from their historical context? Every decision is loaded with meaning, touching on respect, authenticity, and our connection to history. Tutankhamun's tomb, designed to honor one fragile life, keeps forcing us to ask how we, as a civilization, should responsibly engage with the past. The wonder and the unease remained locked in a constant push and pull. Technology has not only helped preserve the artifacts, but has also reshaped our understanding of Tutankhamun himself. CT scans and DNA analysis of his mummy have revealed a young man who was far from the golden god he appeared to be. He likely had a clubfoot, walked with a cane, and suffered from genetic conditions and malaria. Suddenly, the focus of conservation expanded. It wasn't just about protecting gold and jewels, but about protecting the body of a real person, balancing our scientific curiosity with the ethical duty to preserve his dignity. The tomb became a space where our modern morals met our ancient curiosity. The dazzling treasures, we now understand, are inseparable from his fragility. A golden throne can't erase a physical disability. A chest full of jewelry can't cure an illness. The conservation efforts themselves reveal a profound truth. Even the most carefully prepared sanctuary, whether through ancient magic or modern science, cannot protect against every threat. The tomb teaches us that wonder must be met with humility, and our admiration must be tempered with care. Today, global audiences can experience Tutankhamun's world without ever stepping foot in the tomb. Traveling exhibitions, virtual reality tours, and stunning documentaries bring his story to life. But that fundamental tension between exposure and protection is still there. Every photograph, every broadcast, every visitor, even in the most controlled environments, introduces a tiny element of risk. The wonder of his story inspires us to engage with it, but the unease it creates demands that we reflect on our impact. The Boy King's legacy reminds us that our interaction with history is never neutral. Admiration carries a heavy responsibility. Ultimately, the tomb's legacy is more than just its artifacts. It's a masterclass in stewardship. It shows us how one ancient society tried to preserve a vulnerable life through ritual and gold, and how our modern civilization must continue that work with science, ethics, and global cooperation. The fragility that was once addressed with spells and sarcophagi is now managed with climate control and digital scans, yet the tension remains. Wonder invites us to explore, while unease warns us of the consequences. The tomb is both a historical marvel and a moral lesson. Even after 3,000 years, Tutankhamun's story captivates us because it mirrors our own human experience. His life was short and fragile, marked by both great expectation and physical hardship. His tomb, crafted with such immense care, preserves this vulnerability while inspiring absolute awe. Our modern fascination continues this ancient dialogue between admiration and responsibility, between beauty and caution. The treasures may dazzle us, but they are forever tied to the lessons they carry. That fragility demands our attention, that preservation requires humility, and that our sense of wonder must always be balanced by a healthy dose of unease. Tutankhamun's tomb endures, not just as a showcase of gold and artistry, but as a monument to the delicate dance between life, death, and care. It challenges us to think about how we treat our history, how we engage with fragility in our own world, and how we balance our insatiable curiosity with respect. In every golden object, every painted wall, every fragile piece of linen, the Boy King's story continues to whisper across the millennia. Wonder is powerful, but unease is necessary. Only together can they preserve meaning, beauty, and our shared human story for generations to come. Is it the dazzling gold mask, the stories of a fabulous treasure, or the whispers of a deadly curse? It's a story that begins not with its discovery, but 3,000 years earlier, in the silence of the Egyptian desert. And about the delicate balance between wonder and unease that we feel even today. He was unlocking a conversation about life, death, and what it truly means to preserve a legacy. For over 3 millennia, the desert had guarded its secret. The opening of his tomb gave us more than just priceless art. It gave us a window into a profound meditation on our own mortality. Every single object, from the grandest shrine to the smallest amulet, speaks to the fragile line between living and dying. The legacy of this young pharaoh is inseparable from the care his people showed him. Inside his tomb were over 100 walking sticks, ornate chariots he likely couldn't use in battle, and layers of jewelry and protective charms. These weren't just symbols of royalty, they were interventions. They were tools designed to support his physical weaknesses, to guide him through challenges he faced in his short life, and to ensure his safe passage into the next. Modern science has confirmed what the ancient Egyptians already knew. His fragility required constant attention. The tomb, therefore, is more than a treasure chest. It's a testament to a society that deeply understood human vulnerability. They sought to preserve dignity not just with wealth, but with foresight, artistry, and ritual. This is where the story gets truly fascinating. The tomb has lived on in our global imagination. Millions have stood in awe before these treasures in museum exhibitions, but the deeper truth often gets lost beneath the shine of the gold. Every encounter with his legacy carries a powerful duality, wonder and unease. We are awestruck by the incredible craftsmanship, the ingenuity of a people who could create such beauty. This tension is the source of the tomb's enduring power. It captivates us, it teaches us, and it reminds us that all the beauty in the world cannot erase our fundamental vulnerability. Preserving this legacy is now a global responsibility, and it's a heavy one. How do you satisfy curiosity while showing restraint? Modern technology has given us amazing tools. We have 3D imaging, climate-controlled displays, and forensic analysis that allow for unprecedented study without ever touching the artifacts. But even this indirect interaction carries risk. The Boy King's tomb was once a sealed, private sanctuary. Now, it exists in a constant dialogue with the world. The walls are covered in hieroglyphs, the chambers filled with shrines and divine figures, all meticulously designed to guide the king on his journey into the afterlife. In a way, the entire tomb is a living lesson in empathy. It is the physical manifestation of a civilization responding thoughtfully and compassionately to a young life that needed protection. We can't feel the wonder without also feeling the unease. It is Tutankhamun's human fragility that gives his tomb its powerful emotional heart. Beyond the gold, beyond the splendor, we are confronted with the reality of a life meticulously preserved against all odds. The tomb is at once a celebration of human ingenuity and a solemn meditation on the inevitability of decay. Even the sensational myth of the pharaoh's curse reflects these deeper truths, just in a more dramatic way. It's a powerful metaphor, warning us that interfering with fragile ancient systems can have unforeseen consequences. It reminds us that our sense of wonder must always be tempered with respect. The Boy King's life was tragically brief, but his tomb provides lessons that will endure for millennia. This duality of awe and unease also shapes how we engage with history itself. Tutankhamun's tomb is a metaphor for human curiosity. We are drawn to beauty, to mystery, and to power. Every exhibition we mount, every book we publish, and every digital reconstruction we create carries the weight of stewardship. The Boy King's life reminds us that the human experience is never purely wondrous. It is always balanced by vulnerability, by the need for care, and by the ethical choices made by those who come after. Ultimately, Tutankhamun's tomb is far more than a collection of artifacts. It is a sanctuary of attention. It is a monument to a civilization that understood fragility and a timeless meditation on mortality. Its treasures inspire awe, but each one also carries a sense of uneasy, chilling awareness of a vulnerable life, preserved across thousands of years. The Boy King's story reminds us that beauty is not enough without care, that curiosity carries responsibility, and that death, no matter how we disguise it, gives meaning to a legacy. In the gold, the wood, the stone, and the rituals, the tomb encodes both the wonder of human achievement and the fragility that defines all life. And as modern observers, we are active participants in this dialogue. Every study, every exhibition, and every quiet moment of reflection on the Boy King's tomb continues a conversation begun 3,000 years ago. Wonder and unease, admiration and reflection, they are inseparable. The treasures, so meticulously arranged and preserved, teach us that care, empathy, and responsibility are truly timeless virtues. In the end, Tutankhamun's tomb is a mirror. It reflects our own fascination with greatness, our recognition of fragility, and our ongoing duty to preserve and honor what is precious. And that human fragility, when met with wisdom and care, can be preserved for eternity. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the deeper story of Tutankhamun. If you found this perspective meaningful, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. See you next time.